It's been a while. We're finally here. Houston Texans 2022 season. Why you should feel good about Nick Caserio at this point. For me, it's really simple. The thing that matters most with Nick Caserio at this point, with what he inherited, is developing and drafting young players. Last year, he didn't have a full draft. Still did a very good job drafting guys. Davis Mills, third-round pick. We'll get into that a little bit later. Obviously, that's one of the main storylines. Roy Lopez is a starter. Nico Collins is a starter. You have Garrett Wallow, who they like a lot. Nick Caserio did a good job drafting last year, despite being handcuffed. This year, you have 10 rookies on the 53-man roster. That's a lot. So last year, kind of felt like you weren't really accomplishing much because there was all this veteran stuff, but now there's kind of a youth movement. And the thing that matters most in this situation with where the Houston Texans currently are is drafting players, developing young talent. That's it. Point blank. You went so many years with King Bill and Jack Easterby. You were trading draft picks. You were bringing in veterans. You didn't have a lot of young talent. There appears to be some young talent, and that's what matters most right now. And that's the one thing that at this point, again, it's going to be a long season. We're going to find out about these rookies, and we'll get into that as the preview goes on. That's what you feel best about so far with Nick Caserio, and fortunately, that's what matters the most. Why you shouldn't feel good. Now, this is an interesting one because there are a lot of Texans fans, and I talk to them all the time. By the way, I am Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610, home of the Houston Texans. I've lived this. I've covered this squad. We have been in this together for the last 6 years. I'm giving the YouTube thing a whirl. I'm going to be doing this daily. Please subscribe at Landry Locker. I want to interact with you. I want to talk to you. And on top of the radio show, I want to bring you some other daily content, whether it's reacting to breaking news, post-game show. I'm in the locker room after every single game. I talk to all of the players. I'm going to provide you with those interviews. I'm going to provide you with the insight. I'm going to provide you with the emotions. And again, we're going to be in this together. And shout out to everyone who's already in this space. I got nothing but love for you, nothing but respect. As the show goes on, I can promise you that the background's going to look a lot better, all that type of stuff. I'm not really a big technology guy, but I'm going to make it do what it do, and I'm going to make this the best Texans YouTube channel, hopefully, on top of all the other great ones that they already got going on. So just give us a shot, 10 to 2. Download the Odyssey app, Sports Radio 610 in the loop. I promise you won't regret it, and we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with the Texans, and I'm going to do this daily as well. Next broadcast will be the post-game show after the Colts game. Now, why shouldn't you feel good? This is a very, very fair feeling by a lot of Texans fans, and I think this has a lot to do with why we've interacted with Cal McNair and Hannah McNair more than we have my entire career here, and I've been here for a while, and I've covered this team, and I've been covering this team since Cal took over. A lot of fans just feel they feel like there are trust issues with the organization, and it's absolutely fair. The beginning of Cal McNair's ownership has not gone well. He trusted Bill O'Brien too much. He brought in Jack Easterby, who's the worst thing to ever happen to football in this city. And he goes behind the scenes and says a lot of things. And I think they're kind of minimizing that. But it hasn't been a good start. And I think he would be the first to tell you that. But there have been a lot of owners that haven't started out well, and they figure it out. And he seems to be figuring it out. And he seems to, in my opinion, be trusting the right guy to turn this around in Nick Caserio. Hashtag Caserio is the scenario. But you have a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. And we don't even have to get into what happened with Deshaun Watson, the way things ended. It's well documented. But even before that, because of the way the organization was functioning, and it kind of sucks that Deshaun was kind of like a Bill O'Brien truther when he could have come out and said something if he really felt the way he did. But I think it's as much to do with the other guy. I won't mention his name anymore because I know it's a real big buzzkill, but the bald guy. But you lost your franchise quarterback because the organization was being run poorly. That's fair. And that's how a lot of people feel. And that's why there's some trust issues. And that's why Cal McNair, Hannah McNair, Nick Caserio, Lovie Smith now, we'll get into him as well. That's why they are trying as hard as they are to win you back. But I can absolutely 100% understand why you might not want to buy in. And I actually asked Nick Caserio. I was at his press conference when Nick, the day after Deshaun Watson was traded. I know you guys feel that way. So I asked Nick Caserio the question, and this was the message from the general manager of the Houston Texans.
Not to look back, but looking forward and control. How confident are you that moving forward, you won't find yourself in a position where once you acquire a player of that caliber, he's not going to want to get used to Texas?
Yeah, I think nothing's guaranteed, so I don't want to sit here and say that anything's guaranteed. But the hope is that when we bring players in the organization that want to be a part of what we're doing, and I think we've seen some of that in free agency. My interactions and discussions with agents. There's players that want to come to Houston. There's players that want to be in our program. There's players that want to play for Lovie. There's players that want to play with players that we have in our program. So our job is to try to go out and find players that fit the profile we're looking for, of the team that we're trying to create, of the team that we want to be, and be able to identify those players and then bring them into the building. And then once they are in the building, then our job is to develop them, is to coach them, is to give them an opportunity to have success. So each case is different. Each player is different. You never want to kind of put everybody in the same box. But the players that want to come to Houston, that want to be in Houston for a reason, hopefully. And our job is to go out there and find the players that want to be here and hopefully want to be part of a successful program.
Follow-up time. I'm going to make him cuss. I'm going to make Caserio cuss. Drink your milk, Caserio cuss. It's good, though. I love Caserio. This is the money quote of the press conference right here.
All about finding solutions.
Here we go.
So you take the information, and you can't change what's happened, right, Landry? So here's the information. Here's the situation. Nobody's going to make excuses. Sorry, my friends. Nobody's going to pitch and moan about your situation.
Forgiven.
It's okay. Let's deal in the real. Let's deal in the now. Let's identify problems. Let's provide solutions, and understand that we're going to have to find ways to fix it and make it work. And if that doesn't work, then let's turn the page. I think you have to be very flexible. You got to be able to pivot to something different. Maybe the way you thought originally it was going to go doesn't go that way. Okay, well, then you got to be able to adjust and adapt. So I think.
And I think that's the most interesting thing is he's talking about pivoting. He's talking about adjust and adapt. And there's many people, including myself, that might think that maybe Lovie Smith was an adjustment. Maybe that was a pivot. Maybe they wanted to hire Josh McCown. It seemed that way. I know I was a big proponent of Josh McCown. But when I went to the press conference, Lovie Smith's introductory press conference, I walked in there feeling kind of strange. Just because the way everything went down and all the drama, and it was in the middle of the Flores lawsuit. But when I walked out of that press conference, I looked over to my co-host, John Lopez, the OG, the great John Lopez. And I looked over to a couple other people that were in the elevator, and I said, damn, this feels kind of right. It feels kind of right. And I remember last year when Nick Caserio said process over results. And when you're rebuilding, sometimes process do matter more than results. But when you had David Culley as a head coach, you weren't accomplishing anything. They might have looked into Lovie Smith. Hell, they might have liked Lovie Smith the whole time. But I left that press conference feeling like Lovie was the right guy. And I asked Lovie because there was kind of a perception initially before you actually, got to see how Lovie Smith blended in with this team and with this organization. There was kind of like a perception, and my co-host is guilty of it. He was sitting right by me. There was a perception that they just wanted a coach they could control. And Lovie Smith, I asked him about that. Lovie Smith damn sure isn't that guy. And if he's not, he is doing a good job convincing me and others that he isn't.
One of the things that we've heard, and we heard from Tony Dungy earlier on the show, he said a lot of good things about you, but he also said the Texans are hard to figure out. And that seems to be the perception through this whole process. We're talking about candidates, and it seems to come up like, oh, they just want someone they can control. And I said, I don't know if Lovie Smith is the kind of guy that's going to be controlled. Speak to the notion of the people saying they just want a guy they can control.
Well, we all, again, go back to history. We all have a history. I'm not a guy that I would think that people would say that. I have my opinions on how things should be done. I don't compromise my principles at any time. I'm leading this program, and I'm going to lead it a certain way to a certain place. And it's not, from my experience, it's not like I got to.
And when I first said that, I thought he was going to jump on me like a trampoline for asking that question, but I think he gave a good answer.
Figure, okay, what are we going to do in the off-season program? What's training camp going to look like? Game week for us, what are we going to do? Decisions that happen on game day. It's not like I'm a rookie. I've been in that situation before at a high level. When I took the Chicago Bear job, the press conference there, who is this guy? What he's going to do? And I said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Give us a chance. Even when we went to Tampa Bay, now they pulled the plug on it a little bit, but we had a 4-game from where we started. We had a 4-game improvement the next year. And with time, we would have been able to do it. It's not like I'm trying to figure out our plan. I know what works. A lot of the situations I've been in too is I was always trying to, all right, I knew what we were going to do on the defensive side. Maybe didn't ever get it right exactly how I wanted it to be on the offensive side of the football. I know what we're going to be, what we're going to look like on the offensive side. So I feel like all 3 phases are going to be working in unison together.
All right. So Lovie Smith, when they first hired Lovie Smith, it felt like they were settling. I'll be honest. It felt like they were settling. But the more that I've heard Lovie Smith talk, the more that I've just kind of felt it out, the more I've seen the way they've done things, the players that they've added, the fact that Lovie and Nick seem to be on the same page, the fact that they've gravitated to the city, which doesn't matter if you're a good team. Like even Bill O'Brien could be just a complete jackass to everybody because you thought maybe you had a chance to compete. But in this situation, I think gravitating to the city and blending in does matter. Lovie Smith's done a really good job of that. And you could feel it immediately at the press conference when it happened. As far as the season, the 2022 season, and again, feel free to subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it at Landry Locker on Twitter. Again, this is kind of a work in progress. We're going to look back at this one and say, damn, what was up with that editing and whatnot. But as far as the season, there are a few questions that stick out the most. And then I just want to go through each position group and answer the burning question about each one. But the biggest question for me, and this is the question I've asked, if we're just focusing on, because now that we've got the past over with, we can look forward. The number one thing for me, and this has been one of the questions that I've had, is what in the hell is a Pep Hamilton offense? We haven't seen Pep Hamilton call an NFL offense in a long time. Last time he did it was in Indianapolis. He ended up getting fired. Kevin Bowen, out there at 107.5 The Fan, we have him on every Colts week. He said he felt Pep was a scapegoat. I don't know. I'll take his word for it. But I have no idea what a Pep Hamilton offense is. I know they say they want to use tight ends. I know they say that they want to run the ball. That might be a problem as well. We'll talk about that as we get into the positions. But I was fortunate enough to talk to Pep Hamilton at training camp, and we were at all the practices. And this is what Pep Hamilton said in response to my question about what exactly, sir, what is a Pep Hamilton offense? Here's the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans answering that question.
I've asked this question, and I just want to ask you, heading into the season, what the heck is a Pep Hamilton offense? Because obviously it's based on personnel, it's based on a lot of things. But if you could tell me what is a Pep Hamilton offense, what would your answer be?
Well, the Pep Hamilton offense does not exist. It's
okay.
The Houston Texans offense, and
come on,
and
Pep.
Ultimately, Pep. We said this before. It's all about featuring the abilities and the strengths of your playmakers, and we consider offensive linemen to be playmakers around here. We feel like it starts up front. We have a physical bunch. We have just a group of guys that have some skins on the wall.
All right, so not much of an answer there, but we are going to find out what a Pep Hamilton offense is. And the thing that I do think needs to be brought up when we're evaluating Pep Hamilton is how good is the personnel that he has to work with? Is Pep Hamilton going to be able to run the offense that he wants? Is he going to adjust? Because I didn't like the game plan offense with Bill O'Brien. I don't think a lot of people did, but is Pep Hamilton, if the interior, for example, if the interior offensive line's getting its ass kicked, is Pep Hamilton going to be able to adjust? Are we going to be able to get a quick game going? Is there going to be able to be a situation where maybe he rolls out Davis Mills? Because in the past, with the previous offense, with the Bill O'Briens and the Tim Kellys, you had a situation where it was basically just you leave these offensive linemen on an island, and you basically ask the quarterback to take the SAT before the play. Because the system's so difficult, you're basically asking the quarterback to read everything. You're asking the quarterback to identify the mic. By the time he goes up there, it's like he's taking the SATs. And that's the thing that is going to that's going to be something that's going to decide what we think of Pep Hamilton after the season. I can't sit here and say this offense should run the ball for X amount of yards, or, Davis Mills better be this. But when you look at the personnel, when you lay out realistic expectations, when you take into account that depth is an issue at really every skill position, in every skill position area, from running back to tight end to wide receiver, is Pep Hamilton maximizing what the Texans got? Maybe we go to DVOA. I know Bill O'Brien really, really struggled in DVOA, but that's how we're going to evaluate that. That's at least how I'm going to evaluate that. We'll hear what Davis Mills had to say, because Davis Mills had some really interesting stuff to say when he joined myself and John Lopez straight off the practice field about the old system. But before we do that, let's get to the next biggest question of the season. So we've already gotten into Pep Hamilton. What is the Pep Hamilton offense? Next question is, how much better is the defense going to be? It's going to be better. It has to be. If the defense isn't better, then you might be in a situation where Lovie Smith deserves to be a one and done coach. And I don't think he's going to be. But if this defense isn't better than it was last year, where they couldn't stop the run, where they couldn't stop the pass, they couldn't really do anything, then that's a problem. The question is, how much better can this defense be? Are we looking at a top 20 defense? Are we looking at a top 15 defense? Because I think this defense can actually be really good. And by really good, I mean a very significant improvement from near the bottom of the league to maybe near the middle. Specifically in the secondary, you've improved the secondary. It might actually be a really good secondary, and you have a lot of bodies on the defensive line, and you're not too shabby at linebacker. So it's not necessarily for me a matter of if the defense is going to improve. It's how much is the defense going to improve? Final question. What does optimal success look like? To me, optimal success, if we're talking about these young guys and we're talking about Derek Stingley, and he's going to go through some struggles because all young corners go through struggles. But if we're talking about the rookies that are going to see significant time, Stingley, Petrie, Christian Harris when he gets back, Kenyon Green, Pierce, and we're talking about these guys and we feel like they're chess pieces, then that's what success looks like. If we're talking about Davis Mills improving, not becoming this like top 10 elite quarterback that everyone's talking about, but if we're talking about Davis Mills just improving, that's what success looks like. Can't really measure it by wins and losses. It goes back to the process over results that Nick Caserio talked about, but that's what I would consider success, is if these young guys progress. Let's go through each position and address the burning question about each one of the position groups. Let's start with the most important thing. A wise man once told me it's all about the quarterback. So Davis Mills, we'll start there. Does Davis Mills have to be the guy? A lot of people are expecting Davis Mills to be the guy. And if you whoever you listen to people and they say, well, Davis Mills, he's got to show him that he's, a franchise quarterback or else next year they're going to go draft a quarterback. I don't think that that's the case. If Davis Mills can just improve And Davis Mills can be a guy that you feel okay about holding down the fort. Maybe you have hope that he can turn into like an Andy Dalton or something like that. Do you really have to punt on that? With where you are right now, with how little depth you have, if you have a guy that you feel okay about, are you really just going to have to feel the need to go get a quarterback just to get a quarterback? It's really not. It's not as simple. Like when we talk about the draft, a lot of times we say, "Oh, well, you know, they need an awesome left tackle, a great left tackle, a shutdown corner," and that's not really how it works. Like when Nick Caserio writes out a draft card, he doesn't write down shutdown corner, star left tackle, guard that can start 10 years. It doesn't work like that. And if you look at the quarterbacks drafted in the first round, a lot of times it just doesn't work out. So this notion that Davis Mills has to be, you know, a franchise quarterback or else you got to go find another one, I don't agree with that. I think if Davis Mills can improve and Davis Mills looks solid and Davis Mills looks like a guy that can hold down the fort, you don't have to be desperate to go out there and, you know, roll the dice on someone that you might not like. Now, if you think you can get the next Justin Herbert, okay, maybe you can do that. But there's too many needs. And we also got to keep in mind, yes, Deshaun Watson was great. Deshaun Watson's the best quarterback in franchise history. I don't care what anybody says. I know we like to rewrite history and try to rewrite what Deshaun was, but the young man was he was the best quarterback in franchise history. By the way, the shirt says "It is what it is." That's the slogan for this year for the Texans. It is what it is. But Davis Mills was a third-round pick. He's a third-round pick. Just the fact we're even having this discussion about Davis Mills potentially being the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans long-term, that's a good pick. If you draft a guy in the third round and he's a backup in the NFL for 10 years, you made a good pick. You feel better about Davis Mills right now than you do a lot of these rookie quarterbacks. I don't like Zach Wilson. I would hate to be invested in Zach Wilson because if that doesn't work out, it's a lot worse. But the fact that Nick Caserio got a guy in the third round and the guy that was drafted before him, Kellen Mond, just got cut. He's already on his second team. Just the fact we're having that discussion, that shows that it was a solid pick up to this point. And this notion that Davis Mills has to be a franchise quarterback if you punt, I would tap the brakes on that. Now, is Pep Hamilton going to put him in position to succeed? Because I don't think the old system put quarterbacks in position to succeed or to maximize what they were. Here is Davis Mills. I asked him about the new system and the difference between this system and the O'Brien / Tim Kelly system. This is what the quarterback of the Texans had to say about that. And this was the money quote of training camp, honestly.
It's very different. Last year, I think the base of the system was kind of the New England scheme. Okay. A lot of those coaches and Tim Kelly.
Isn't that hard before the snap? We always hear like seems like you're like taking a test before the snap.
Completely quarterback driven pre-snap. And the big focus from Pep this year when he stepped into the role was he wants to take as much off of the quarterback as he can so we can play fast. Obviously, we still have a lot of control and making sure we're in the correct protection. And like my point, basically confirming or changing anything. But the center is doing the initial point and making the initial calls. So that takes a lot off my plate, especially in the run game when we can just go out there and play fast and the center is pointing it. But I have a lot of familiarity with this system from what I did out at Stanford and my 4 years at college because this is the new pro style or the old pro style system where all the verbiage is pretty much the same from what I did in college. So a lot of it, looking back and installing these new plays was pretty easy going forward.
All right, there you go. So he confirms what we've been talking about for a long time. The old system, I mean, it was very, very quarterback driven, difficult, like they're taking the SATs, but the answer to this whole thing is it's going to come down to Pep Hamilton. It's going to come down to Davis Mills. That relationship is going to be important. But this notion that Davis Mills has to be like one of the top 10, top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL, or else you just move on, I think that's absolutely silly. Let's move on to the running backs. We have a pleasant surprise in Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is your starting running back. If you watched anything that happened in training camp or anything happened in the preseason, you didn't even have to be at practice to see this. He's by far and away the best running back on your team. Now, is that more about the running back room? And running back is a position that Nick Caserio, not necessarily Caserio, but that this organization as a whole, I feel is kind of neglected. I'm a guy who believes You draft running backs every year, second to fourth round, second to fifth. Even in the first round, if there's somebody that you really like, if you can get 3 years out of them, I like it. I'm a fan of that. But Dameon Pierce is going to be the focal point of this run game. Now, if you look at his numbers at Florida, he had 100 carries all of last year. He had double-digit carries 7 times. He had over 15 carries twice. I was a little bit skeptical about that, and I kind of wondered why until I watched college football last weekend and I saw Anthony Richardson do what he did, and I had the revelation that maybe just Dan Mullen just doesn't know what the hell he's doing when it comes to coaching offense. So I think Dameon Pierce, I think there's a chance he can be a solid starting running back. Other than that, I don't know the depth on this running back group. It's very, very suspect. Rex Burkhead, is he your third best running back? Is he your second? Last year, he led the team in rushing, which is something that he's never done his entire career. So when we talk about questions, any question you want to ask about the running back is valid. Do they have a guy that can be a starting running back? Do they have enough depth? You can go person by person and you can dissect that. The running game is going to be very, very interesting. So any question you have about the run game, it's valid. Wide receivers. What are we getting 2 down? And by 2 down, I mean Brandin Cooks is your one. He had 90 catches last year. The next guy behind him had 33, and that was Nico Collins. That's one of the larger gaps in the NFL, and it's actually kind of alarming. I tweeted out at Landry Locker. If you want to look that up, just look up Cooks, Collins at Landry Locker and give me a follow while you're out there as well. If you don't, you can ghost follow me if you want and just talk crap. It's all good. That is Twitter. But what are you getting 2 down? Is Nico Collins the number 2 receiver just here, or is he a guy that can establish himself as a number 2 receiver in the NFL? Question mark. Philip Dorsett, been kind of a journeyman. What are we going to get from Philip Dorsett? You brought in Tyler Johnson. Chris Conley's been all over the place. Chris Moore, really not a lot of wide receiver depth. I anticipate that wide receiver is going to be one of the focal points of the offseason after this year, although we're not here to talk offseason. We will, though, over the course of the week. I'm going to do this daily, so I'm sure that, hell, maybe after week 4, we'll be screaming and yelling about they need to go out there and get Smith and Jigba instead of a quarterback. Who knows? But the wide receivers 2 down, it's a serious question mark. And also in the slot, they drafted John Mechie to be the slot guy. He is obviously going through a much more important battle than playing football, preparing for the 2022 season. But those slot reps are going to be interesting. And could Brandin Cooks, who lined up in the slot 24% of the time last year, could Brandin Cooks be a guy who they move around and put in the slot more? I asked Brandin Cooks that question as he left the practice field. This was actually the first day of camp. Here's Brandin Cooks talking about potentially being in the slot.
You did play 24% in the slot. Is more slot reps something that you would like? Do you like playing in the slot? How do you feel about lining up, or is it just wherever coach tells you to go?
I love lining up everywhere, to be honest with you, whether it be a slot on the outside, just to be able to get guys to respect different things. And I think, I'll lean on coach to be able to do that, but I love being in there, but I also love being outside, line me up wherever. And that's what, the way I think about it.
All right, there you go. So he likes to line up anywhere, and let's be honest, he can. Brandin Cooks has been a very good player for this team, and he's going to be a guy. That was one of the pleasant surprises too, is he signed an extension. He's going to be here for a while. But what are you going to get after Brandin Cooks? That's the top question when it comes to the receivers. Tight ends. Are there any chess pieces? When I say chess pieces, I mean guys past this season. We know Pharaoh Brown got the 1-year contract. Brevin Jordan's in year 2, which if Brevin Jordan doesn't show them something, are they going to keep him around? And then you just brought in the juice man, OJ Howard. How does he fit into this whole thing? Are there guys on this roster, the tight end depth? How many of these guys at this time next year, when my YouTube channel's looking pretty, no glitches, anything like that, got all the subscribers and everything, what are we saying about this tight end position? Are we going to be talking about 3 new guys? Are we going to say, damn, OJ Howard turned it around at age 27? Are we going to say Brevin Jordan, man, they moved him around a lot and he's going to be here for a while? Are we going to say Pharaoh Brown? He got a new contract and it's good to see that Pharaoh Brown has figured it out and they feel good about him. How many chess pieces are there? Because there's a question marks about all of them. I mean, there's a reason OJ Howard didn't work out in Tampa Bay, although I don't hold that too much against him, just like I don't hold it against Tyler Johnson because it's a win now situation. It's hard to develop guys when Tom Brady's there. There's a reason that Buffalo got rid of OJ Howard. And then you have Brevin Jordan moving around a lot. He's had a real bad case of the drops. What's he going to look like? And then Pharaoh Brown, this is kind of make or break for him. I'm kind of actually surprised that Pharaoh Brown's back, but he is. But how many chess pieces do you have at the tight ends? That's the main question there. Offensive line. This is kind of like the defense. How much have you improved the offensive line? Is Laramie Tunsil going to be able to run block? Run blocking was kind of a problem for Laramie last year. Is Kenyon Green going to be able to start? When he starts, is he going to be able to pass block? Justin Britt, what kind of player is he? Can Justin Britt stay healthy? AJ can. He didn't look bad in camp, but he didn't quite pop off the screen. What is AJ can? And then Titus Howard at right tackle. He's at the right place. They're not doing that BS shuffling around anymore. What is Titus Howard going to be? The offensive line is not going to be as bad this year as it was last. How good could it be, though? There's potential this could be a really good offensive line. If you have a really good offensive line, that's going to help the questions that you have at running back. That's going to help the questions that you have at quarterback, and that's going to make Pep Hamilton's job a hell of a lot easier. I can't say unequivocally that they've improved a lot at wide receiver. I guess I can say that at running back because you feel good about Pierce, but I can say that about the offensive line. You've improved. The question is just how much. Defensive line. Third year, Jay Jizzle, will it sizzle? Talking about Jonathan Grenard. Now, there's going to be a natural attempt to judge Jonathan Grenard by sacks. Everything's going to be judged by how many sacks he gets. I will warn you, and I'll pull this up right now just to give you a little bit of an idea that if he doesn't have the amount of sacks that you might hope that Jonathan Grenard has coming off of the 8.5 sacks. Just look at Harold Landry with the Tennessee Titans, and he actually just went down. It's probably the most significant injury right now in the AFC South. If you look at Harold Landry and him from year 2 to 3 to 4. This is why I would be very careful just completely judging Jonathan Grenard's progress based on, sack totals from year 2 to year 3. Look at Harold Landry. Year 1, he had 4.5 sacks. Then he jumped up to 9. Grenard had 8.5. Then he fell down to 5.5. And then he had 12 last year. And he's a hell of a player. And no one in Tennessee was saying, Harold Landry had a down year in year 2. He was still developing. So I say all that to say I would be careful just judging Jonathan Grenard by sacks, although it does seem like kind of something that they trust him more with, and there's a lot of bodies to where he might be out there in passing situations. But Landry is an example, not me, Harold Landry, or Honor Landry, as Vince Young called him when he announced his name at the draft. Harold Landry is an example of you don't want to just judge the guy by sacks. If he becomes better against the run or whatever, we'll figure that out. And Jonathan Grenard's a guy, he's going to be a part of this team for the next couple of years, and then they're going to have to make a decision on him. But how will he sizzle? Linebackers, Wallow and Christian Harris. What's up? We know what Christian Kirksey is. We know what Kamu Grugier-Hill is, and they're good players. But those guys, in a perfect world, those are guys that you sign when you're a good team to make your defense better. They're going to make you better. Like, you're better off having guys like Kirksey or Kirko, as Nick Caserio calls them, and Kamu Grugier-Hill because they can run, they can tackle, they get the job done. But it goes back to the chess pieces. They seem to like Garrett Wallow. Nick Caserio talks very good about Garrett Wallow. The only thing that Nick Caserio talks better about than Garrett Wallow is like lettuce or water or something like that, whatever the hell he eats. Garrett Wallow, they like. How's he going to fit in? Christian Harris, I love Christian Harris. Christian Harris is the most interesting rookie to me. You want to talk about a crazy story. Christian Harris is a guy, he went to high school on LSU's campus. He was a wide receiver, running back / DB. He said no to LSU despite going to school on their campus. And he goes to Alabama. And when he goes to Alabama, despite not playing linebacker in high school, he starts every game of his career at Alabama for Nick Saban at linebacker. This dude's a stud. He's an absolute stud. And when you see him and you see him moving around a little bit, you can tell that this kid can ball. Unfortunately, he got a little bit banged up, but Lovie Smith, he has not been shy about praising Christian Harris. He told us that Christian Harris is going to help them win ball games. He's had a lot of good things to say about a lot of rookies. We'll hear what he had to say about the DBs coming up. But Christian Harris and Garrett Wallow, those are going to be your guys that you want to look at this year, because these are the guys, the chess pieces, the long-term pieces. Biggest question is, what are they going to look like? How are they going to look? Christian Harris, you have higher expectations for than Wallow. How does Wallow fit into this? I know they're going to like to run. How is Lovie going to use the linebackers when they have 3 or 4 out there? These guys keep an eye on these guys because these are potential chess pieces. I like Kirksey. I like Kamu Grugier-Hill on this defense. But 2 years, 3 years from now, I don't think we'll be talking about them. We could be talking about Christian Harris as a very important piece if this ship gets righted and if Lovie Smith gets it going with his defense. Defensive backs, the core kids. We're going back to chess pieces. Derek Stingley, he looks the part. I don't know if it's just because we haven't seen a lot of rookies and we haven't really, in this town, we haven't had solid cornerback play in a long, long time. But Derek Stingley looks the part. He's got the pedigree. He's got the mystique. You watch him go toe-to-toe with Brandin Cooks in practice. You saw him in the preseason. Just the way he looks out there, he looks the part. I was a Stingley over Sauce guy. I know a lot of people wanted Sauce Gardner, but Derek Stingley, what is he going to be? There's going to be times where he struggles. I do have my popcorn ready for this matchup with Michael Pittman on Sunday at NRG. I think that's going to be a fun matchup. But how does Derek Stingley look? How is he going to look moving forward? And Jalen Petrie might be Lovie Smith's favorite rookie. Lovie said this year when he was talking about Jalen Petrie, he said this guy's going to be in this league for a long time, and he basically named him a starter the first day after practice. So what are those guys going to look like? And that's really like when you go up and down the roster, that's going to be the main thing. Like, how many chess pieces are there? How many guys are there on this team that are going to be here when the Texans get good? If they get good, how many of these guys are still going to be here? Because that's your core. You have 2 first-round picks the next couple of years. Those are your core guys, the cornerbacks. So just to reset all the questions, and this goes to Davis Mills. Does he have to be the guy to answer that question? I would say no. Running back, any question you have. How good is Dameon Pierce? Did Dan Mullen hold him back? Can he tote the rock? Can he be a guy that carries the load? Wide receivers, what are you getting 2 down with Nico Collins and company? Tight ends, are there any pieces? Are there any long-term pieces? There's 3 guys. I could see all 3 of those guys potentially being part of this roster a year from now. I could also see any 3 of those guys not being here. Tight end, it was one of the areas of weakness heading into the offseason. I think it's one of the biggest areas of concern at this point, and the depth is just so thin. You tried to make a trade that fell through. Then you brought in O.J. Howard. Tight end, are there any long-term pieces? Offensive line, how much have you improved? When do we see Kenyon Green? Is Laramie Tunsil going to run block? The offensive line is better. How much better is a question. And then at the D-line, Jonathan Grenard. How good is Jonathan Grenard going to look? You also got a lot of bodies. You got Mario Addison. You got Jerry Hughes. You got a lot of guys. You got rid of Ross Blacklock, which was a good thing. You got Roy Lopez. Kurt Heinisch, my gosh, why did you get rid of number 69? Big mistake on your part. You were playing so well. There was so much opportunity there with number 69. But you seem to have a lot of bodies on D-line, but it's gonna come down to how Jonathan Grenard looks, because he's the one with the highest long-term ceiling, it appears. Although I wouldn't sleep on Roy Lopez. There's not a lot of expectations for Roy Lopez last year. This year, you almost feel safe. It's kind of weird how much Roy Lopez has done for himself in a short time. Last year, you're kind of like, oh, he's playing with house money. That's awesome. Now, all of a sudden, you almost just feel like you don't even have to worry about that part of the D-line anymore, which is good. The linebackers, Wallow and Christian Harris, how do those guys fit in? Specifically, Christian Harris, really intrigued to see how he looks. And then the DBs, you got two guys that you hope are going to be here for a long time. You brought in Steven Nelson, who I like. I think that's a solid number 2 corner. At least he's looked the part. If you talk to anyone in Kansas City or Philadelphia, they'll crap on him, but let's be honest, Kansas City and Philadelphia, shout out to you. High expectations in both cities, but they've been known to crap on some guys when they leave town. And then Jonathan Owens, another guy. I don't know if Jonathan Owens is a quality starting safety in the NFL. It might just be a situation where he's the right guy here. Oh, and he also happens to be competing with Eric Murray, who is one of the remaining pieces of the whole Bill O'Brien thing. But that's really the preview. We'll be out at the Colts game, myself, Figgy Fig. If you're out there at the game, we're going to be working the lots. We judge the tailgates. Hit us up at Landry Locker, at the Figgy Fig. We like to break bread with people. And then after the game, I'm going to go down in the locker room. I'm going to talk to some players. And then our next broadcast is actually going to be a live stream as we get this thing going. I'll be posting Monday through Friday. Whenever news breaks, I'll be posting as well. But something else we're going to do, we're going to have a live stream of a post-game show, most likely around 6. And a lot of my friends will be joining me. Mike Meltzer of Mad Dog Radio, also an attorney, former Sports Radio 610 employee. He's going to join me for the post-game show on Sunday, and we'll bring that to you. But again, this is a new venture. Very excited to be a part of it. We'll look back at this production maybe and laugh. In case you didn't see, that's an NFL hat. That's an It Is What It Is shirt, which was the motto of the Texans. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610 with John Lopez and Figgy Fig, who's the best in the world at what he do. We're in this together. We're covering this squad. I'm excited about doing this daily and getting this whole thing going. And again, please subscribe at Landry Locker on Twitter. We'll get this whole thing going and we'll find our groove together. And hopefully this is the beginning of some very fun content. And hopefully it's the beginning of better days ahead for the Houston Texans, because this has sucked. Trust me, I've had to live it. It's not optional for me. I'm about this life. And as I've always said, we're in this together. We all want the same thing. I love the city. I want the Texans to be good. And it seems like they're kind of figuring stuff out. You know that I've been known to hammer them whenever they're not very good. But right now, the vibes are okay, and we'll see what happens. So be sure to subscribe. I'll talk to you on Sunday in the postgame show. I'll talk to you daily. And as news breaks, we'll keep this going. Have a good one. In the loop, tomorrow we have Football Friday, Slime Off, all types of stuff. Get your morning started with Payne and Pendergast from 6 to 10. Then you got Clint Sterner in the show after us. Have a good one. Appreciate you. We're all in this together. New venture. Let's get it.